If you do what most people do, you pop a pill to quell the symptom. I always say popping a pill is kind of like your fire alarm going off when your toaster's on fire and
Right.
you walk over to the fire alarm and you take the batteries out, but the toaster's still on fire and eventually your house is going to burn down. That daily living causes fluid degradation in the cellular matrix. And even if you don't have pain, which is one of the primary things it can cause, but even if you don't have pain, anybody listening has felt what I call stuck stress in fascia. Like when you sit for long periods of time, and then when you get up, you kind of feel like you aged 40 years because your joints don't quite work as well when you get up as they did when you sat down. Or you wake up in the morning feeling as stiff as a dried out sponge left out overnight on your kitchen sink. That's your fascia talking to you. This system is needing to move, which is why motion is lotion. We need to move every day. If we're too still, it's one of the primary things that causes that stagnation in the tissue. But also repetitive postures and movements do. So if you're playing a sport or things like that, you create these lines of strain because fascia is a force transmission system too. So if the tissue is kind of always in a particular state, after a while, it creates kind of like a run in a stocking. It starts really small, but all of a sudden it's like clear up the leg of the stocking. And so, again, the researchers are really looking at this system and understanding that if you don't ever do anything to really hydrate fascia, you do start getting more noticeable symptoms like one or more joints. Just suddenly you're like, wow, my knee's really starting to hurt me, because fascia is extra durable around our joints. And so your joints kind of act like, I don't even know what you want to call it, like a GPS system. They're like satellites. And if the fascia is losing its fluid state around a joint, your brain starts getting messages something's wrong, and now you get these pain signals. And here's the big kick: if you do what most people do, you pop a pill to quell the symptom. I always say popping a pill is kind of like your fire alarm going off when your toaster's on fire and
Right.
you walk over to the fire alarm and you take the batteries out, but the toaster's still on fire and eventually your house is going to burn down. So I think understanding fascia and that it's sending us these pre-pain signals all the time, which should be our alert to do something for it. And instead of ignoring it or thinking it's just aging or blaming aging for those feelings that you have, if you don't ever do anything or you're constantly popping pills, you end up getting symptoms that seem completely unrelated to fascia, like bloating, weight gain, wrinkles, cellulite, exhaustion midday, right? In the middle of the day, all of a sudden you want to take a nap or pop caffeine, but then at night you try to fall asleep and you can't wind down. You're not falling asleep. You're not staying asleep. You're getting up in the middle of the night to pee. That's your nervous system now alerting you that it's having a hard time with sensory regulation. And I think that what the researchers are showing with fascia is that it not only plays a significant role in pain, but also in longevity, in cellular stability, and neurological, chemical, psychological stability. So fascia is the stability system of the body that we should actively participate in tapping into, because diet and exercise don't really address the fluid perfusion of fascia.
So if I'm listening to this and I just learned all this about fascia, right? What are the things that the average person can do to start to take action? The we said motion, is lotion. We know that movement is good, and sunlight and all the basics, walking barefoot. But what are some of the things that you recommend to help them, maybe starting with rejuvenation of fascia, and then to develop the fascia for anything that they want to accomplish in their lives? Maybe it's sport, maybe it's just staying healthy as they age.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, not just fascia, but I would say three really important things that, again, are free. People can do. Start adopting these habits. Number one is sipping water more frequently and eating more water-filled foods. That's just number one, right? So that it's like logical. But I got this glass of water in front of me. Instead of me, popping all my pills in the morning and drinking this whole glass of water in 4 seconds and then not drinking for 3 hours, you would be better served sipping this glass of water and making it last an hour, and then filling it back up and doing it again, rather than guzzling it and not drinking for long periods of time. It's number one. It's one of the primary things that can help fluids and fascia stay more hydrated, and it's just cellular hydration. Second thing is sleep hygiene. You want to sleep in a dark, cool, climate controlled room. If you don't have, if you're waking up to sunlight, which is fine as long as you're going to sleep when the sun goes down and then waking up. But if you're going to sleep looking at your phone until you finally turn it off, that blue light is actually a killer of your sleep cycle, of your circadian rhythm. So at least 2 hours before you go to bed, shut the blue lights off, dim your lights in the house. If you're going to watch TV, make sure that you're a good distance away from that television. But I always think that an hour before bed, just lying down and just doing breath work, just breath work entrainment, slow, focused inhalation, exhalation, then sleep with an eye mask so that you actually wake up when your body's ready to wake up, not necessarily when the sun is there to wake you up. A third thing, and we kind of talked about this before we got on, is bouncing. Anything that like, whether you're on a trampoline, where you just, even if you're not going to, your feet even don't leave the ground, just a little bit of bouncing, because fascia relates to the lymphatic system. So bouncing can actually help the fluid perfusion from fascia to lymph. Lymph is what is part of your immune system, junk dumps fluids and waste and metabolites out of your body. And then, I have a methodology called MELT, and we focus specifically on fascia and the nervous system and the lymphatic system, and trying to give people tension and compression techniques, because fascia is a tension compression management system. And tension and compression can dehydrate tissue. Like when you sit for long periods of time, you're putting compression on the back of your legs, tension to the back body. That's why when you get up, you're like, wow, my back kind of feels stiff and my knees aren't working just yet until I get to my kitchen from my bedroom or whatever it is. But it's also a piece of understanding how to apply gentle tension and compression in local regions, and then creating flow into the tissue, driving fluid perfusion. There's a word that we use, it's called piezoelectricity. Biomechanical pressure can actually, if you put pressure or tension on the tissue, it's called mechanotransduction. It can take pressure and turn it into cellular exchange. So anything that gives you, it could just be your own hands touching and squeezing your body, making sure that you're touching your body every day. I think we should touch ourselves more. And I think that those are like really important elements of keeping your fascia hydrated.
Well, I think that's a great explanation, and there's three things that you can do right there to have a deliberate response to hydrating fascia, to building and developing, resurging it. The funny thing is that I think checking in with our bodies is another thing that comes down to personal responsibility. The older I get, the more in shape I feel. It's almost funny in that, I've had this body, this healthy mind, all of these opportunities, and I had to hit 40 to start taking care of it in a way that I mean, I did it, a lot of these things younger, but
Mm-hmm.
not to the level. Like, even working out, I spend a good 5 to 10 minutes now prior to my workout just loosening up, just making sure that I'm not just going in to hit the weights and to go right in, because I found myself injuring, just stupid little tiny injuries
Yeah.
that don't need to happen. And if I just take my time, what you're talking about, going to bed, how many of us wake up in a rush and go to sleep in a rush, and then we wonder why we're not sleeping restfully? It's the same thing about actually anything we're doing in the day. And it's something as simple as long stretches. Like, I like to think about the dog. When the dog wakes up, the
Right.
first thing the dog does is he kind of gets that big stretch, and he's
Pandiculation. Yeah.
yeah, and then he goes and gets some hydration, and
That's it.
he drinks some water, and then he goes to the bathroom, and then he comes back in, he's
We
ready to
should all
play.
listen to our animals. They know everything.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the simplicity, but we get so used to everything else getting in the way that it becomes very difficult.
Yeah,
And
it's a hard piece of it. But you're saying something really important, is awareness, and again, agency. And I feel like that's really what melt is it this invitation for people to come back home. We call it the 4 R's protocol, and the first R of melt is reconnect. Like, before you do something, you should assess yourself and understand where you are today, physically, mentally, and emotionally. How do I feel in my body? So when you can become a conscious agent in a physical form, like before I go to lift weights, I'll sometimes just lie on the ground and I do what we call a rest assess. And the rest assess is just that, an assessment of how well you can actually rest. And I tell you what, I would say when I do classes, I think 20% of the people actually can't lie still for 2 minutes. They fidget, they adjust, they're looking at their watches. They literally cannot rest. And then when I say to them, I want you to use body sense without movement. I just want you to notice for unnecessary tension in your body. And with your mind, relax your shoulder girdle and relax your thighs. And you actually see bodies kind of go, and finally meet the floor. Like, they're practically levitating on the ground. And so I say to them, that's an indication like you have unnecessary tension living in your body that you wouldn't have known about had I not just pointed it out to you. But now, if you know that you have it, now you know you can get rid of it. Like that sometimes I have tension in my system. And if I just say to my body, relax, suddenly you drop down another level. This is part of wellness that most of us never do, is that we actually don't attune our mind back into our bodies. We have to give ourselves permission to go into our bodies. And especially for people who have pain, that's why pain relievers become a thing, is because they actually want to tune it out. You actually leave your body. You're sort of zoned out of it by taking oxy or whatever. And for me, that was a big, kind of a wake-up call at 45, 10 years ago, when I had gotten married. And then 4 years later, my husband died of an accidental overdose, because he was using oxy and it was laced with fentanyl, and he died. And it's like, you suddenly realize that it's right in front of you, that people that you love are doing things, and these drugs are not your friend. They're not your friend. They can kill you. And the ownership comes back to agency. It comes back to self love, self acceptance, self trust, self knowing, self belief, all of self, you fill in the blank. We need to exercise our right to identify ourselves within a physical form. And when you do that, I think you have a lot more control over your life, because you're in here, you're checking in all the time. How am I feeling today? Or you're with somebody and all of a sudden you're kind of like, your face starts to get like this, and you're like, wow, I'm really having a feeling about this like freaking person's energy. Let me just see if I can take that back a little bit and take a breath and not assault them with my words because they're really pissing me off, right? Like, you just sort of can take control and not let any circumstance or any situation get the better of you, and not let your emotions control you, that you're bigger than your emotions. You're even bigger than your thoughts and your beliefs. So we can amplify the choices in our lives and have more control just by agency.
So YouTube has this cool feature where they pick the next video for you, and it's right here on this screen. So I hope you enjoy this next video.